Course 8, Shifting Sandland, Mission 1 in the Talons of the Big Bird. Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Super Mario 64. In the last part we dusted off the rest of Hazy Maze Cave and then went through all of Lethal Lava Land, and now it's time for us to access our desert level for this game, which, as a kid, I really didn't like, and I'm not the biggest fan of it now, but I've grown a little more kinder on it, I guess. The big thing with this level is you need to watch out for the quicksand in the distance, the moving sands, as touching that is instant kill as you just sink into it, same with the bottom of any of the sand whirlpools you see. Antlion pits, that's probably a better way to describe that. Here in Mission 1 we need to get on top of that platform or over here to the pyramid in the distance and then start flying because the star is, as the title said, in the talons of the big bird. The vulture that's flying around is carrying it, you just need to make contact with it and then the star will fly over to a very specific section of the level and we can complete it. Now, if you want to walk over there, it's a surprisingly tedious walk because there's the section with the moving blocks in the distance you have to avoid where you can only really be safe under one side of them. So this is actively the stage where the wing cap, I think, gets the best use, as you can really just fly around the stage and ignore a lot of things within it. This is why the wing cap is probably the most popular power-up in the game, as not only is it the most useful overall, but it's the least situational compared to the metal cap or the third special cap. As if you can find it in a level, you can use it to really go anywhere. Which I do appreciate about it. Star 2, shouting atop the pyramid. This one's pretty straightforward. We need to get onto the top of the pyramid. It's right there. We actually saw it for a frame or two there. I think the main reason I've grown softer on Shifting Sandland as I've aged is that while I still don't like the instant kill nature of the quicksand, I've realized it's just such a small level in totality that it doesn't really register as being super annoying. It's only really maybe grabbing the red coins here that I find really bad, and technically climbing the secondary section of the level, but we'll talk more about that in a few moments. Also notably, this level marks the return of Pokies from Mario 2 USA Mario World. You can only destroy them by destroying the head. You can punch or kick away their other segments, but as long as you get the head, they're gone. But if you don't get the head and you kick away some of the other segments, the segments do regenerate. With that said, killing them is also a very good boon for either healing or the 100 coin mission, as destroying the head drops a blue coin. So Mission 3 is the first time we need to actively head into the pyramid in this stage. We can do that by heading to the little door that's just below the star we actually just got. And flying into that is very easy to do. Get used to triple jumping up to that platform from the wing cap. It's effectively the most useful thing you can do in this level. The internal of the pyramid is a pretty straightforward platforming segment. Because you're towards the wall, in this case, the camera is actually pretty helpful here, as it's always giving you a view of what's around you. You got pretty good depth perception. With that said, it's definitely a bit of a surprisingly long platforming section. The sand in here isn't instant kill, by the way, in the center of the pyramid, but you do slowly start sinking into it, and it hampers your jump and all that. I don't think you can sink far enough that it kills you, but I don't think it's just ever happened to me, so if it can, future me, make sure to do some research on that. You know, it's funny. Hearing this song here actually makes me realize one of my other issues with Shifting Sandland that's incredibly petty. I really don't like the song they play in the outside sections that they use in a couple of other levels. I think it's actively my least favorite song in the game, because it's bland and very one-note sounding, very literally, even. Meanwhile, in here we got one of my favorite mixes, honestly, of the Mario 1 Underground theme that we've heard in a couple of other places in the game already. It's just a really kick-ass version of that song, very bouncy. Meanwhile, outside it's just blam, 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 and it's Mind you, I guess desert levels don't usually have, like, the most famous song in a given game. It's usually the ice levels or the water levels or just the standard plains levels in platformers that are like, okay, here's, like, the iconic song. Meanwhile, desert levels are usually kind of just in the background compared to basically anything else. I think the only desert level theme from a Mario game I can easily remember is, I think the one from New Mario Wii. That's just because I really like one riff in it in specific. I probably also really liked the Desert World theme in Odyssey. It's just been a while, so I can't really remember any song from that game outside of the vocal songs, as well as Steam Garden's song, which is my overall favorite song in that game. At the top of the pyramid lies our star, and now we're done here in the pyramid for now. We'll be heading back in there momentarily. Coming up next is a star I really didn't like in my first playthrough because I really didn't like using or controlling the wing cap as a kid. And while I'm definitely better about that now, there's also something else I can do to get around it. Mission 4 is stand tall on the 4 pillars. As the mission lists on the tin, we need to get on top of all 4 of the pillars surrounding the pyramid. With that said, one of them is over quicksand, so no matter what, you're gonna need to use the wing cap, unless you do a specific long jump, I think. With that said, as a kid I thought you had to use it to get on top of all four. You don't. You see, there's a bit of a weird thing with Mario and certain terrains in this game where he can just kinda run at almost 90-degree angles up some of them. The sides of these pillars count as that for some reason. I'm assuming that was technically unintentional, but hey, it works, and I think they kept it in the the DS release rather, so you could just do that outright. Also, something I should know, you may have noticed a box near the entrance to this level that's bouncing around. That's a way to get coins. The box bounces 3 times at further heights and distances. And upon landing the 3rd time, it actively destroys and drops like 5 coins or something like that. You can actively influence its direction with the analog stick, so keep that in mind for the 100 coin mission, but be wary if you're near quicksand or a pit. Once you stand on all 4 pillars, the pyramid's top explodes and you can enter a hole at the top of it, dropping us into the cage we saw at the end of the previous star, which then becomes an elevator all the way down to the bottom, allowing us to access a new door we couldn't access otherwise. I don't think there's another way to do this and get in here without doing maybe some absurdly precise jumps and all that. And down here we got a platform of some sort. Whoa!
Walk here. Who break seal? Wake, ancient ones. We no like light. We no like intruders. Now battle. Hand to hand.
You know, it says something when the 2 hands fight from Nintendo was already kind of a thing by the time this happened. So, iRock here is a pretty straightforward mini-boss. He's just gonna try and push you off the platform into the bottomless pit around us in a couple of different ways, but that's it. He can also just slam down his fists on you to try and do damage outright. 3 hits to the eye on either hand will destroy it, then you just get down to 1, and at that point, you're pretty close to the end of the fight as it is. This mini-boss has always kind of stuck with me, but I think that's largely because it's just in such a unique area for a mini-boss compared to the other ones. There we go.
What happened? We crushed like pebble. You so strong. You rule ancient pyramid for today. Now take Star of Power. We sleep darkness.
Yeah, this mission I just didn't like as a kid because of the wing cap, but in retrospect, it's probably my favorite in the mission overall, as it takes decent advantage, I think, of both set pieces within it in a pretty effective way. With that said, we're now going to be moving back into there for the next mission, which is our 8 red coins. And at this point, I should mention something about the vulture that we fought in the first mission, effectively. Their name is Klepto. After the first mission, Klepto tends to hang in the Oasis area in the back corner of the outside section here in Shifting Sandland. But if they attack you after you either grab the star but before you actually collect it in the first mission or in any mission after that, they can knock off Mario's hat and take it. You can collect it just by making contact with them again, and then collecting it once it lands on the floor. But what's notable about that is you can just leave it there in the level, but there is a hazard to that. When Mario doesn't have his hat, he takes extra damage. I'm not sure if it's double or just like 1.5 times, but something along those lines. The annoying thing, and something to keep in mind though, is that if Mario loses his hat and you want to recollect it, it does stay in the level in question. So if I died in Shifting Sandlands and went to another stage, I wouldn't have my hat unless I went back to Shifting Sandland to grab it. Notably, that was changed in the DS version, I believe, where if you just got another star at a different level, any of the random toads around the castle would have your hat afterwards. But mind you, the hat's mechanics changed a lot in DS because of the extra playable characters who you start as. The hats at that point effectively became a power-up for the main starting character, but we'll talk more about that if I ever decide to cover DS. What I could honestly do at some point is just do an LP of DS that's an addendum to this LP that covers the new stars exclusively, but we'll see. We'll see, you know? Maybe if I decide to do a replay of this like I've done with some other LPs for outdated commentary or something like that reasons, I could do the DS release, just be like, hey, I get to eat both cakes. Notable thing about this red coin mission, by the way, is that 4 of the coins are in the air near the pyramids, but you can't get it by just jumping off of them. You do need to use the wing cap to get them effectively. Meanwhile, the other 4 are all on the ground surrounding the pyramid in some form. There's usually one in each quadrant, effectively. There's one behind the start, there's one here in the block section, there's one in the oasis, and the 4th one is just near where the star marker is for this star. Once you grab all 8, just gotta get back safely, which in that regard, doing the block one last can be a little scary because you're surrounded by instant death. But as long as you take your time, it's not that scary. It's one of those where it's more paranoia, fear, rather than actual implementation of mechanics fear, if that makes sense, phrasing-wise, that I know I'm kind of a mess with a lot of the time. So with that, we're already on to our last normal star here in Shifting Sand Land. This upcoming star is, I think, what I consider my least favorite here in Shifting Sand Land nowadays, if only because there's a section to it where the camera really just doesn't behave with you at all. And I don't like the jumps it tries to make you make while the camera is doing so. With that said, while we're at it, we're also going to get the 100 coin mission done. This is what I mean about these boxes bouncing. You can influence the direction pretty easily, but be careful where you're aiming all the same. The 100 coin mission in here, like in Lethal Lava Land, requires going into the subsection of a level, which means if you actively take a loss at that point, well, you're just outright losing some coins, and you're probably going to need to restart at that point. Heck, the sub-level section is actually needed more in this level than Lethal Lava Lands, as the blue coin switch for coins is in the interior of the pyramid. On top of the star we need to get in this point in the stage anyway, so you kind of got your options cut out for you if you don't like the interior there. This is a 100 coin star I often just avoid doing if I'm trying to get as many stars as I can quickly. I'll usually just move on to the next stage at this point, but hey, worth noting all the same. Also, hey, there's Klepto taking my hat. As I said, just jump into him and you get it right back immediately. Very forgiving on that, but I feel like they probably had to be because otherwise you'd have to be super precise with like a cannon shot to get it. So I'm grateful for that. Coins are right there. That's where the blue coin switch is, and they all spawn right on top of the sand here. Our destination in the main star we're doing here is also in the pyramid. Thankfully, we just need to climb nearly to the top. Not all the way, though. We need to reach roughly the 3rd or 4th thwomp, namely the one that's on the thin little bridge section that tries to slam down while moving forward or backwards towards you. That's 100 coins down. Like with Hazy Maze Cave, though, try not to make your 100th coin one of the ones on the iron grate we can climb overhead behind us at the moment, as I think that platform is thick enough where this star clips into it and there's no way for you to actually grab it. So that's kind of annoying, but that's just general rule of thumb. Don't collect a 100th coin from something overhead. Otherwise, you're probably not going to be able to grab it. So at its core, this mission is what's known as a 5 secrets mission. We've already seen one of these, namely in Bob-Omb Battlefield's final mission where we needed to use the wing cap to grab the coins in midair. These missions just require finding and touching or collecting 5 specific points in a section of the level. The reason we need to go all the way to the top of the pyramid is that in order to find the first 3 of the 5 points, we need to go damn near to where the first star actively is here in the pyramid. Namely, there's a little guardrail here as we climb this ramp, except for a little gap right here. This gap marks the place you can fall down for the first of the 5 secret points. From here, this is where the camera can really screw with you like I mentioned earlier. The first 3 points are all on platforms surrounding this sandfall. And the jumps here with the camera are a little unreliable, hence why I missed that one, so I'm going to need to do a jump cut backtrack back up there. The next 2 secret points are all along this little sand river. You just got to get the coins that are along it, and then the star would appear at the end of it. But now I need to backtrack up there to get the 5th one. Oh well, kind of an annoying jump. Don't really like this star just because of that. It's a simple thing, but it does feel like the camera actively fights you in cases like that. With all 5 found, the star is revealed, and now we can actively be done with Shifting Sand Lands and move on to our next objective here in the basement, which, if you're going for hidden stars, there's 2 things we can do at this point, but notably, you can also just go to the boss fight at this point and you'd be completely fine. The first thing I want to do is actually stick around this area where Shifting Sand Land and Lethal Lava Land are, as the rabbit has once again spawned in and has another star for us. I think technically speaking he spawned in a little sooner than this. I'm not sure what the count of stars he needs is, or what it's just time or something like that. Future me will probably come with a tag on that. A really annoying thing about this rabbit in DS, by the way, because the controls are worse there to begin with, he's annoying to catch, but they also added several more randomly spawning versions of him that are character exclusive even, I think. No, 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 not you again. I'm in a great hurry, can't you see? I've no time to squabble over stars. Here, have it. Never meant to hide it from you. Just that I'm in such a rush. That's it, that's all. Now I must be off. Ow, let me go. Another star down. Next up, we want to take care of the only other door we haven't accessed here in the basement. Worth noting, you can do the next star as soon as you enter this portion of the castle, but I ultimately decided against doing that as I would have to walk past 2 of the 3 painting worlds to do so, technically 3 of the 4, counting the one we haven't accessed yet, so I just decided against it. Back here at this other door, we got a pool of water we can swim in. And if we follow this all the way around, which is a little bit of a practice thing actually thinking about it for the next painting world, we find ourselves in a room with 2 posts and a sign to the left. Let's read the sign to get a good idea of what we can do here. It is decreed that one shall pound the pillars. Alright, so ground pound the pillars, and doing so makes the water level in here fall. And entering this newly accessible door reveals the entirety of the castle's moat has now been drained. And this is important because if you looked around here a little more at the start of the game, you would have noticed there's a hole down here that was blockaded by a grate. That is now accessible to us, revealing our final secret level for a special hat. Welcome to the Vanish Cap switch course. All the blue blocks you find will become solid once you step on this cap switch. You'll disappear when you put on the Vanish Cap, so you'll be able to loot enemies and walk through many things. Try it out. The Vanish Cap is the most situational of all 3 power-ups, as it just allows you to walk through certain substances, namely certain walls, which means it's useful for the stars that requires it directly, but there's no real reason to use it outside of that, because it's not like it makes you invincible like the metal cap. It doesn't let you fly across the map with the cannons like the wing cap. It's just for like 4 or 5 total stars, and you're really probably not going to use it outside of that. And I think they're very aware of that even internally in the game, because this specific switch cap course has the least to do with its ability. This is just a straight-up platforming challenge that can actually be a little tricky when you're on these rotating platforms when they get to the top of their bar, as they do start rotating around completely. But once you get to the end, you do have to get another Vanish Cap just to go through the fence to actually grab the star from the 8 red coins. You just stepped on the Vanish Cap switch. The Vanish Cap makes Mario disappear. Now Vanish Caps will pop from all the blue blocks you find. Would you like to save? With that said, there's already a world we've been to that we actually did not 100% at the time because we needed the Vanish Cap. So now that we have this, we're gonna make a brief detour back there to not only get the 100 coin mission done, but also to get the star we missed there. The exterior of Peach's castle always reminds me of a very specific time of my life, namely when I was old enough that YouTube was a thing, so I was like 11 or 12. I remember there was a lot of videos of people, for one thing, doing like effectively pre-Gmod stuff with Mario, just putting Windows Movie Maker subtitles in to be the storyline. There was one I believe I've talked about back when I did X8 that was just Mario hacked to look blue, or glitched to look blue, and he was Mega Man in that case. That's always weird looking back. But I also distinctly remember thinking, because that was around the same time period where there was a lot of people talking about, like, the alternate gauntlet color glitch in Ocarina. I remember thinking there had to be a way to climb a seam around here very similarly to how you had to climb a seam near Hyrule Castle in Ocarina of Time to do that. That was here, but I don't think such a thing ever materialized. I was probably just imagining that because I was a child and thus full of imagination. Not that I'm not full of imagination now, it's just that it's a reasonable imagination. So, our next destination, now that we have the Vanish Cap, is to once again head back to Big Boo's haunt, as the final star there can now be obtained with the Vanish Cap, but we are going to take a brief moment while we're in there to go coin farming for the 100 coin mission as well. Now, due to things we've talked about more recently in the LP, you might think because of how small Big Boo's haunt is compared to other levels that it's a pretty tight 100 coin mission, and I guess on paper it is numerically. But due to the high amount of blue coins present here because of all the boos you can fight, it's actively a pretty safe one. Just taking care of all the boos in the merry-go-round as well as on the main floor from the first mission, you can get, I think, upwards of over half the blue coins, the coins you need just from those. Then there's the red coins you can get on top of that. Plus, you have to keep in mind the 2 Mr. Eyes, the blue coin switch that's up near the second Big Boo battle we did at our end of our first visit here. It's a pretty easy blue coin mission. With that said, in order to get the star we're actively here for outside of the red coin mission, we need to get the Vanish Cap that's right there and get up here to the top floor. The Vanish Cap allows us to walk through the painting of a boo up here at the top. In fact, I think you can use it to walk through any painting of a boo here in the mansion if you wanted to. In fact, I'm not even sure if you can use it in the one on the merry-go-round. I kind of doubt it, but if you can, hey, that's neat. Once we get into that painting, there's going to be a gigantic Mr. Eye over there that we need to walk around in circles to destroy, just like the main ones, and doing so will net us the final star for Big Boo's Hunt. Admittedly, the timer for the Vanish Cap here feels especially tight because you have to keep in mind the double jump, triple jump, or wall jump you need to do to get up here, but frankly, it's not that big of a deal because it's such a short distance at the end of the day. Once you get the execution down, it'll go by pretty quick. Yeah, like that was like, what, like 3-4 seconds after I entered here, if even, that it faded, and I made that on pretty good time. Also, as much as I did find it annoying, I do feel like the fact that each of the 3 special caps have a use in the first set of worlds is very intentional because they want you to leave and come back later. But it's just always kind of annoyed me because one of the only times the game really requires that, similarly to Banjo-Kazooie, if you know, you know. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 8, now that we got the Vanish Cap, we're going to head back to the basement area and finish that off. See you guys then.